Tag TV and Tag Radio. Be seen and heard by both technology users and technology producers throughout the state of Georgia and around the world. Low cost, big benefits, powerhouse online branded video and audio has arrived. Tag TV, Tag Radio, there's a lot more to know. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. 9 seconds. It took 9 seconds. The unthinkable, something you could never imagine in your wildest nightmare, and yet from it something you could never thought possible. He was 18, an excited and energetic kid with dreams of college and beyond. The scene, rural Georgia. A bunch of guys riding home in a pickup truck after a hard day of landscape work, riding in the back of the truck with a couple of friends, talking about sports, plans for the weekend. Suddenly, in a wink of an eye, bam! The truck was hit by a passing 18-wheeler. The impact threw him underneath a 3-ton attached trailer, while the vehicle dragged him over 320 feet. Third-degree burns, right leg completely severed off. His left leg hung barely intact. Unthinkable. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, February 28, 2012, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. Up to the Tech Talk? Unthinkable. What you would never imagine in your wildest nightmare, and yet something you never thought possible. Scott Rigsby, through his inspirational efforts, remains true to his simple prayer. Maybe they can all look at me and say, you know what? Life is tough, but if this guy can make it, then I can make it. Almost 20 years after his accident, enduring countless doctor's visits, hospitals, 26 surgeries, and additional amputation, depression, fear, and uncertainty, he sought and found his purpose for living. First double amputee in the world to finish the Hawaiian Ironman triathlon in 2007 and again in 2011. In Scott's journey to achieve endurance, he believed in something greater. Tino speaks with Scott as you experience his tragedy and his triumph. Inspirational efforts to improve and enable the physically challenged that endure similar circumstances to live through and obtain the unthinkable.
Scott, thank you for joining me on Tech Talk.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, we're looking forward to having you speak on March 14th at the TAG Young Professionals event at Georgia Technology Research Institute from 6 to 8 p.m. This is a little bit of a precursor to that, I think, to get people excited about the opportunity to come and hear you. So thanks for agreeing to be with us on the 14th.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Why don't we start, Scott, by just talking about the tragedy, I guess, time at least, is what happened in terms of how you lost your legs.
Well, I was an 18-year-old kid, and I was sitting in the back of a pickup truck with two of my best friends from high school. We were working a landscaping job to earn a little extra money before I went off to college. This is 1986. It was in rural South Georgia. We were pulling a flatbed trailer with two big industrial lawnmowers on the back, and this 18-wheeler had been following us for about 10 miles and decided to pass us from behind. And as we approached this narrow bridge, the 18-wheeler driver did not think he was going to have enough room, so he moved his vehicle over, caused this collision with our vehicle. I got knocked off. My legs got lodged in between our flatbed trailer tires, and I literally bounced up and down the road over 324 feet on the pavement. My friend in the middle grabbed my other friend, who's sitting closest to the kind of the grass side, or he would have been crushed between the side of the truck and the bridge, and then went to grab for me, and I wasn't there, so he frantically started beating on the back of the glass to tell the driver to stop, but the damage was done. So my life radically changed in 9 seconds, because that's how long it takes for a person to be dragged 324 feet going 45 miles an hour. My life really isn't a series isn't a story from tragedy to triumph. It's really a story of many miracles. And that day, a miracle happened, and my life was spared.
And you've written a book called Unthinkable. Why the title? And its book, I guess, talks about the story of your life from that point on.
Sure. It just talks about kind of the unthinkable journey that I've been on. We've got that word unthinkable. If you go to the dictionary and you were to define it, the word it's defined as something that's inconceivable. And if you look at a further definition, it's something that's not to be attempted. And one of the things that I stress where I travel all across the country and speak to corporations, military bases, professional college athletic teams, high schools, middle schools, whatever the audience that I speak to, I just share with them this one kind of mantra that I live by, something that not only I believe in, but I've applied to my life and believe that if they believe in it and apply it to their life, it will radically change their life. And that's today's unthinkables are tomorrow's realities. That what we perceive in our mind today to be unthinkable is simply tomorrow's reality.
And I'm sure that this wasn't an overnight situation where you had the accident and then you figured out the purpose of it all and started getting involved in athletics at that time. How long did it take for you to? I know the journey still continues, but how long did it take for you to kind of go through this process for yourself?
Well, I had the accident at 18, and then over the course of 12 years, I would have 25 surgeries. And what had happened is when I had the accident, the doctors at that time, prosthetics were not as advanced as they are today, and the doctors wanted to take off both of my legs, but my parents feared that would just absolutely devastate me and I might not recover. And so they begged the doctors to at least save one of the legs. Well, my right leg, most of it was not even there. My calcaneus, my heel bone, it was actually drug off, and on my left leg, so I had to have bone grafts, skin grafts, and muscle grafts. And over the course of 12 years, I'd have those 25 surgeries. And really, I became a prisoner kind of to this left leg, this leg that kept breaking down. And then through technology, a prosthetic leg became a greater use to me than a makeshift, man-made, salvageable leg. So technology 12 years later really gave me my life back. So because I chose to take off my left leg, June 22nd, 1998, literally 6 weeks from the time that I had the surgery, leading up to kind of some rehab, PT, and things like that. 6 weeks later, I was up and running. I didn't have any reason to run, but I was scaring all the older patients in the rehabilitation center, so they kicked me out. But the technology was there to really give me my life back.
And what first gave you the idea to start running? And of course, you've taken it, and I know that our listeners will want to hear the story.
Well, I mean, I was really at the lowest point of my life, and I kind of threw up this kind of Hail Mary prayer and hoping somebody would hear it. That I knew that I wasn't a cosmic mistake. I felt like that there was a plan, a purpose, and destiny for me, but I wasn't fulfilling it. I really wanted to kind of check out of life. And so I just kind of threw up that prayer, and then about 2 weeks later I walk into a bookstore, and I read about this world-famous race, the Hawaiian Ironman Triathlon, and something inside of me just said, this is kind of the one thing that I was supposed to do. And I've talked to people like mothers, and I've talked to older gentlemen that have spent time in the military, and different people that have been successful in their careers, and they kind of, whether they were a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, professor, they just always knew kind of something inside of them. The most fulfilled people, they knew that this was kind of the one thing that they were supposed to do. And as crazy as it sounds, with a guy with 2 prosthetic legs reading about one of the toughest one-day endurance races on the planet, it sounds crazy that, hey, this light went on inside of me and said, this is what you're supposed to do. But for me, it was confirmed because the next magazine over, I opened it up, and it had one of our wounded veterans that had lost his leg in a roadside bomb. And I just felt like this race could save my life, but not only save my life, but give me a platform to provide hope and inspiration for those who have made a personal sacrifice for my freedom. And through that I could walk into, if I finished this race, I could walk into any military hospital around the world and provide hope and inspiration just by my very presence.
That's a great story, and it looks like the first time that you did a marathon was the Ford Ironman World Championship, or?
Well, the first time I did a marathon was actually the ING Georgia Marathon.
Okay.
About 7 months before the 2007 Hawaiian Ironman World Championships, or the Hawaiian Ironman Triathlon, and it's also called the Ironman World Championships. But I wanted to run a marathon a la carte by itself before I would do that at the end of a marathon. I mean, at the end of a triathlon. Probably won't. Some of your listeners, they may not know what an Ironman is. Ironman is just a distance. A triathlon is just where you swim, you bike, and you run in that order. They have different distances, like a sprint is the smallest, Olympic, half Ironman, Ironman. And so an Ironman is just a distance. It's a 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, and a 26.2-mile run, 140.6 miles, and you have 17 hours to finish that race.
Yeah, it's the toughest out there, and you and I were talking a little bit before the program, and you talked about the differences in technology from 2007 to the last triathlon that you did, or at least the last Ironman triathlon you did. Talk a little bit about that and the challenges you faced in 2007 with just the lack of technology that was out there, or it hasn't progressed to the level that it did, at least in 2011.
Sure. I've completed the Hawaiian Ironman Triathlon twice. I did it once, October 13th, 2007, and then I did it October 8th, 2011. I did it about 5 months ago. And when I did it the first time, because there was no one out there trailblazing, being the tip of the sword, I had no reference point because when I started, a double amputee had done a sprint triathlon, and that was about it. So I was the first to do Olympic, half Ironman, and then the Ironman World Championships. But my first go around, we didn't have any way to there's three parts kind of to the prosthesis. You have a foot, the curved kind of running feet, but their limitations in 2007 were they only allowed for compression. They only allowed for shock absorption. They did not allow for propulsion. So that was one limitation on the feet. Then the actual, most people who are amputees below the knee, their legs are ideally taken off 4 to 5 inches below each knee. And their leg is placed inside a carbon socket. It has a kind of basically a sock that's made out of gel. It fits into a carbon socket, and a sleeve is rolled up. Well, those carbon sockets are very stiff. They're light, they're stiff, but they don't flex. And in 2007, that ability to not be able to flex, amputees can run fast, they can run far, but then it just really, the jarring on their body, the technology was not advanced to mimic the knee, the compression that a knee gives you, the absorption that a knee gives you. And something that radically changed in 2007. And then just the ability to be able to get out sweat. In 2007, I had to stop every 4 miles of that marathon to dump out sweat on my legs, wipe my legs off, put lotion back on, put my legs on. And it was a crazy race because here I am, I'm trying to run a marathon every 4 miles, as fast as I can, and then I'm going to stop to wipe my legs off and dump out all this sweat. Well, in 2011, through a technological advance, 2 years earlier, I was allowed a electronic pump. So this pump pulls out it pulls out the sweat on the run. Not everybody can use it, but I was able to use it, and it pulls out the sweat, and it creates kind of a wicking effect. And so when I finished in 2011, I had, zero sweat in my legs, and after 6 hours of running a marathon. Also, as I was telling you earlier, in 2007, the challenges with the hard, rigid carbon socket, even though it was light. 2 years ago, the carbon was actually developed. A flexible carbon was developed, so it's the closest thing that mimics a knee. I have my knees intact, but I need something to be able to support my knees that gives me flexibility. And so that I didn't have any muscle soreness. The next day I put on my legs and went on up a day. You never would have known I ran one of the toughest races, one-day races on the planet, because of that flexible carbon. And then lastly, the third major technological advance in prosthetics, running prosthetics, was the feet. How I was telling you earlier how they only allowed for compression. These the curved kind of feet that most amputees run on. A company named called Freedom Innovations out in California. They developed a blade that actually goes in the middle. So just imagine visually, you can imagine a C-shaped carbon foot, but then a blade in the middle so it looks like a heart. Well, what happens is when that foot compresses like it normally does, the middle spring, the secondary spring or the middle spring that makes it look like a heart, that compresses because it's based on like a crossbow technology, and it actually propels me forward. And it mimics anyone pushing off on the balls of their feet. So not only do I have compression, but I now have propulsion. And so my times were it was the closest thing that I ever experienced, or any amputee would ever experience, in running like they had their real leg.
And just what's the toughest part for you? Is it the swim, the bike, or the run? I would imagine it's the run.
It is the run. I mean, the swim really is I mean, if somebody has been kind of even a recreational swimmer, I mean, 2.4 miles in the ocean, it sounds like a lot, but to swimmers, it's really not a lot. I didn't have a swimming background. I didn't know how to swim when I first started, but I learned, and the swim is just kind of to tire you out. The bike is very demanding because it was 135 degrees on the pavement.
Yeah.
It's 130. It's about 110 degrees heat index, and it's about 85 to 87% humidity, 90 degrees. Challenging winds, 30, 40 mile an hour winds on the bike, blowing some people off their bikes over the guardrails. So that the bike is challenging, but it's the run. Once you have spent 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours on that bike, you have to be off the bike by 5:30 in the afternoon, or you get disqualified. Then you have a marathon to run, and your legs, when you get off the bike, they feel like 200 pounds. And so that's obviously the most challenging part of the run.
Well, we don't want to take everything away from the opportunity for you to speak on March 14th at GTRI at 6 o'clock as part of the TAG event, Young Pros. But one last question. I know you started a foundation. Tell me a little bit about that. What's your goals for that? What's it look like today, and what would you like to see it, say, like 5 years from now?
Sure. It's Georgia-based. It's a 501c3. It's the Scott Rigsby Foundation. And when I finished the Ironman, the Ironman was really never an end. It was simply a means to a larger end, and I wanted to kind of leave a legacy and really help the people who inspired me to do the race, and that's our wounded military. And so I started this foundation in 2008, and then last year we helped through our foundation. There are great partners at Camp Twin Lakes, and through the Roosevelt Foundation down in Warm Springs, we have set up, last year we had 3 Wounded Warrior family retreats set up. And basically we bring these soldiers from around Georgia into even the southeast into this facility at Warm Springs at the Roosevelt Center, and we just love on them for a weekend, because an amputation, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, that doesn't happen to an individual. It happens to a family. It happens It not only happens to a marriage, it happens to a family, it happens to a community, it happens to a state, it happens to a nation. So we want to do our little small grassroots part of being able to help the soldiers and their families within not only the state of Georgia but within the Southeast. But we bring in these families for a weekend. We give the spouses, soldiers, and kids counseling. We give them activities. We give them date nights. And we try to love on them and really help restore this family to a new normal, because the reality is they're not going to have a normal life. They're going to have to embrace what is a new normal life. And we hope that we can be a catalyst to be able to make that happen for these families who have sacrificed so much. And what we ask from the soldiers is, after they attended 2 camps, then we would ask that they would be a mentor to these younger families that are coming in. So last year we had the privilege of helping 250 families and around the state of Georgia. This year we have actually 4 camps set up.
Well, Scott, that's great. You truly have found a great purpose for your life that's, I think, a lot of people are envious in terms of what your legacy will be and what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, it's very worthwhile. And I look forward to personally meeting you on March 14th. And thanks for joining me on Tech Talk today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I just wanted to say one last thing, that if it wasn't for technology, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. So I want to thank all those folks that in the technology field that you know, sometimes they may think that their job, maybe they may think it's insignificant, but it's not. It's absolutely changing lives.
Well, I'm sure that folks that are listening in that are involved with the technology industry are appreciative of that thought. So thanks again, and we'll see you on the 14th of March.
Thank you.